Okay, my name is Ronald Harper,
Imani Holders.
Marcus Burrell, 2 R's, 2 L's.
and today we're going to talk about the book on how to lie with statistics. Now, before we start, does anyone have any questions?
Nah.
Nope.
Okay, well, we're going to talk about chapter 1, the chapter titled The Sample with the Built-in Bias. Now, in the beginning of this chapter, it talks about surveys and listening to what surveys has to say and how that always isn't the best idea. It starts off talking about how an article that all Yale alumni men make about $25,000 a year coming out of school for the rest of your life. And by reading this, the first thing that popped in my head, like, wow, I need to send my child to Yale so he can make this much. But you also have to realize that this is a graduating class of 1925, so the currency is different from today. But on the other hand, it explains how a bunch of flaws while reading that survey. Because if you were to look into it, you will find out that a little less than the people who graduated that class actually participated in answering an alumni survey. So what happened to the other half of the people that was in the graduating class? It's almost impossible that you would be able to get a hold on all the living people of that graduating class, the people who don't show up to the alumni reunions. For all we know, they could either be dead or not there simply because they can't afford the plane ticket. So that's something you can't assume. A lot of the men who graduated from Yale could be clerks, mechanics, tramps, unemployed, alcoholics, barely surviving writers and artists. So they can't all just be successful. So, those are the kind of men who can't afford a trip to revisit Yale, and those are ones who didn't fill out the survey. Any more questions about that before I go on?
Not a question, but more of like an inference. Since they kind of don't want to say lie, because I mean the people that they did sample did come from Yale. Yes, they are making 25,000, but to say that everyone, but they make it seem like going to Yale, you're guaranteed this at least.
Mm-hmm.
When it's not necessarily the case, because people, because it's actually pretty common for people to come out of big name colleges like Harvard and Yale to come out with big degrees but not even land a job.
Yeah.
So it's like, and it's kind of like stretching the truth a little bit, because like I mean yeah, but it's like okay. He makes 25,000. He does, but what about this person over here? To kind of go off, the whole job thing.
That does make sense. Even just because you have a degree and everything doesn't mean you're gonna get the field that you want. And also, don't forget about loans. You can go to Yale and be in debt for the rest of your life. You can go to CCP, another school, and then have the same degree, but just a different school you go to.
I understand. And there's another part. I noticed that you can't assume that everyone, like you guys said, or you can't assume that everyone who did even take the survey answered the questions truthfully.
That's true.
Now, would you be honest if someone came to you asking how much money you're bringing in every year? You didn't even know the person?
No.
Seems a little personal to me. You wouldn't also know if all of that $25,000 were incoming salary. People during that time made great investments, and a lot of them made a lot more money than simply having a 9 to 5. And the ones who just looked at the survey and didn't answer it, probably the ones who didn't have the money to brag about to tell Yale. They wouldn't seem to be a disappointment. I notice it's a lot of biased information. Information that you'll get different information for depending on where you're going to be. Like, for example, you can't walk into a bar and ask random people the questions, how many of you are non-drinkers? It's going to end up being insignificant information that won't help you in your survey. Like on the second part of chapter 1, when they were talking about just how are you going to make a survey, it's a lot of places and it's a lot of just biased information that you're going to have. Like, like the example I just gave about the bar thing. What do you guys think about that?
I mean, you shouldn't assume, but it's a safe assumption to assume that, like, say that I walk into a bar to ask how many people actually drink. Pretty sure the numbers will be pretty high. I mean, you could probably assume, yes, everyone in there drinks.
Yeah.
Or say it's 100 people, but you only sample 10, and then you go on and say, oh, do you go to this bar, then they drink.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like the people that you sampled, yes,
Absolutely.
but not the whole general population. Is that because it's always that 1 or 2.
Mm-hmm.
So. And then I also wanted to challenge the title, how to lie with statistics, because I kind of knew. I mean, numbers never lie, but you can kind of manipulate those numbers to make it seem like they're saying something different than what they really are.
Absolutely.
Like, but the Yale guys.
Yeah.
Well, how do they come about that number? Is it okay? Say they had 100 people from that graduating class. Was it the people that they sampled, or was the number 25,000 from someone's salary, the number that appeared the most, or did they take the person who made the lowest amount of money coming out of Yale to the person who made the most money coming out of Yale?
And just divided that?
Yeah.
I know. This information that you really won't know. And it's the thing is, it's not lies. It's just different ways to get around it. And
just to make the numbers more clear for the viewer.
Yeah. And talk about half lies and how it's not real lies. That brings them into Chapter 2. Chapter 2, the well-chosen average. Now, as we read Chapter 2 in the beginning, the chapter starts off talking about the real estate business. Let's say you're about to sell a home to somebody, while telling them that the average income for everyone in the neighborhood is just about $15,000. You, not knowing that the term average has a very loose meaning and that also included mean, median, and mode. Mm-hmm. What do you guys think about that?
I mean, I just think that they use those for whatever it's like the most appealing to whoever they're trying to sell their pitch to. Like, don't know. I think this is the same chapter. When they were talking about
Chapter 2,
buying the houses and everything.
Yeah.
And he was talking about like the income of the neighborhood. It was like, okay, I understand that, but it's like, how are you guys coming about this number? Mm-hmm. This is just like said before, the number that appears the most. Mm-hmm. This is the most common income. Is this like the actual average of all the incomes that were like?
I feel as though it's giving you what you want to know, other than what they're really trying to tell you.
Okay.
Like it's not, they're not lying to you, but they're going about a different way to make sure that you hear what you want to hear, so you can get the houses you want.
Yeah, it's like as I was reading, and they really broke it down to me, that the $15,000 figure that was used in the beginning was just the mean, and that's just the average of incomes of all the families in the neighborhood. You know, you just get that by simply adding up all the incomes of the family. In the community, and dividing by how many people that's in the community. But it's a smaller figure. It's an amount about $3,500, and that's the median of the equation. That's the figure by just letting you know that at least half of the families have more than $3,500 in their pockets a year, bringing in that dough. But also, there's a mode. That's $5,000 a year. You get that by just seeing the most frequently met with figure in a series of numbers. That's basically saying that without all the families in the community, there are more with an income of $5,000 a year, more than any other amount. So that's saying most of the families in that community have $5,000 that they bring in a year in salary. Exactly. So that's the mode income.
Not to cut you off, but would y'all rather hear? Say you're trying to buy a house, would y'all rather hear the number that appears the most, or like the most income, or for to find averages? Would y'all rather hear the mode, median, or mean? Because I was trying to to determine that for myself, and I'm not. Yeah,
I'd rather hear the mean.
Because I mean, I was thinking about that, but it's like, okay, but if say I'm in like the range of some of the numbers that appear the most, say 5,000 was the mode, so it's like, okay, say I'm around that income, so wouldn't that be better for me to hear than say the average? Mm-hmm. That could possibly be higher.
That's true. Mm-hmm. But like if you hear the average, you have an overall understanding of what they're making, who's making, and then you know what you're making. So the average seems to be the best fit for me.
It can, but one number can influence the whole average, whether
that is true.
Mm-hmm. It's low or really high. So it could always change up the whole thing.
Again, not a lie, but they're kind of
yeah. And the crazy thing is, that none of these numbers are lies when you're talking to someone. You can't get in trouble for telling someone these 3 different numbers because you're mathematically finding all these numbers when you're doing your survey, or when you're telling somebody these numbers to make it sound better. It's just twisting statistics in your own favor. You get these 3 numbers by using ranges and deviations. I'll explain more of that later in our second podcast. A lot of this information you find not on the regular symmetrical, but skewed graphs that aims to the side that has the highest peak. And that's just crazy that when I was reading this, and it's just you can really twist it in a lot of ways in your own favor, and it's all legal. It's all the right answer. It's just what kind of answer you're looking for. It's kind of like, it kind of makes me realize, like, when you buy something, or like you're going to purchase a car, or you're going to buy a house, like when they be like, oh, this is the average price. I'm like, what's the average? What's the mode? What's the median? All that. Like, give me all that information.
This book shows you how people can really twist around.
How people
and they can't get in trouble because they're not lying. They're just showing you how to lie.
How people can really take advantage of you.
Manipulating the numbers.
Yeah. If you don't know what you're talking about, you will get taken advantage of.
Yeah, I know. And, it was just crazy. I just, like, people, you really got to know what you're talking about these days. But, so, yeah, I mean, today, I think we got through a lot of information, guys. Is there any lingering questions?
I don't like the title. How to Lie with Statistics because you're not necessarily lying, but I see why the name is called.
Yeah, how to bend the truth.
Yeah.